Well, here we are, week 8 now. We officially got the technology to work correctly. We are live. Got a good show. We got a great guest. That's the most important thing. Coming from one of the world's great multicultural places. We're going to talk about some big trades. We're going to talk about probably discuss locking your lineup in time, and certainly whether or not anybody can catch Paul Bielingmeyer in the Low Car Fantasy Football League this season. We're at the halfway mark. Let's see what happens. So without further ado, Mr. Tates, how are you?
Nish, I hate to correct you in my opening remarks, but it is tights. I've been trying to socialize that for a couple years now. So, but
Oh,
thank you for the
tights, tights.
thank you,
You're right. No, no, no. You're right. We should be
th-
as accurate as possible here.
thank you for the warm introduction. And yeah, I'm in a multicultural city, although probably not as multicultural as the South Beach greater metro area, but we could look up the stats.
Well, we can get into, I'm not going to comment on the validity of Census Bureau statistics, but, I'll save that for next time Eric Adams or Curtis Lewa take the podium somewhere. They can comment on census statistics all they want. So, but how are you? Let's start with a little life update. How is it
I'm
trying to herd two cats instead of one?
Yeah, I'm good. It's funny you're catching me on a big test for me as a dad this weekend where I've done the many times the solo weekends just with Isla, our elder daughter, but
Mhm.
this weekend, beginning about 5 a.m. tomorrow morning when Sabrina departs for California for bachelorette party, will mark the first weekend I'm 2-on-1 solo. So wish me luck
Oh,
for a really almost yeah north of 48-hour period where I'll be trying to keep my children alive. So that'll be good.
well, good luck. I've got one at home right now. We've got Kim is away for a few days. Um, with the older one, I've got the younger one. But during the week, it's a lot easier than the weekend. The weekend is a struggle. So I wish you luck, but you'll
Yeah.
survive. You figure it out, right? One way or
Yeah, you
another.
you call everybody you know in your
Mhm.
Rolodex and say, "Oh, could you come over for a couple hours? This aunt, that cousin, this babysitter," and yeah, voila. By the time the weekend's over, it helps defray. So, but it'll be fun times.
Oh no, certainly. Well, I look forward to hearing what type of activities you get up to keep a toddler and a baby occupied. That's the hard part, right? Is they're not going to do the same thing because one is a baby and one is very much not. But you'll
Yeah,
be all right.
that's what
You'll.
the baby carrier is for. Yeah, I'll have my leopard print baby carrier that Sabrina insisted on getting, and I'll be taking Isla to basketball at Chelsea Piers while holding the baby carrier. So we'll be rocking and rolling Saturday morning. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Costco with both. We got the giant cart. They both sit there. You can feed them snacks. Very, very easy. The regular grocery store, much more chaotic. So
Yeah, sounds like you've got some battle scars and some
yeah,
trials and tribulations under your belt in the one-on-two environment.
the problem is when it's 2-on-1 and one of them wants to get down and walk somewhere. The other one wants to get down and walk, but they're like opposite sides of a magnet, and so they just go in completely separate directions. Um, so I don't know. Let's dive into it though. Here we've got a great question. Do you think the commish already regrets his starting quarterback choice? I don't know. I think you should infer my intent that I have Justin Herbert on my bench that I would have wanted to start him. Um,
Wait,
so
I got to catch up on what your starting quarterback choice is. Well, let's see. What are
Lamar
we?
Jackson is my starting quarterback this week.
Is
So
he playing? Is my
you
question.
know, I'm gonna just hope that he is. I think that's what this boils down to. I'm gonna hope that he plays. Otherwise, I don't know. I'm not in a great place, but
Oh, I see. Because Herbert's playing right now. Got it.
yeah,
Now I'm
yeah.
playing a little catch up here. Got it. That is a tough. Right. I mean, you could use the Wagner approach and just say, "Hey, he didn't play. I hope everyone knew I meant to play Herbert, so that
Of
might work for
course,
you."
of
Or you
course.
put that to a
This,
league vote, just recuse yourself, and we'd all vote in favor of that, obviously. So
yeah, let's just say the outcome wouldn't have mattered with all of that. So, you know, it is what
Wagner,
it is.
love you, even though I disagree on this one, but love you.
Oh yeah, yeah, no, not personal at all. It's simply a rules interpretation. I can understand the frustration. We've all been there, forgetting to, make a certain lineup decision, and then a player locks. Like that happens.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I was texting a league member about this, and I thought the issue was gonna be, "Hey, Wagner's got bad Wi-Fi, but I have a screenshot, like, I made the switch, but the Wi-Fi didn't work. Look, I screenshotted it, I was on a plane, it didn't go
Mhm,
through."
mhm.
I think I could be sympathetic to that
Yeah,
scenario. I'm not
I
saying
can
I would can entertain that, but this one was not that.
right. I can create hypotheticals where I would go, okay, I understand. Let's say waivers were running Sunday morning. You're asleep. You're on the West Coast. Like you don't know. I completely get it. I just
Yeah.
don't. It's just not that kind of situation. So, um,
Well,
it's
anyway, but to answer Jacob's question, sorry to cut you off, is really
no,
just,
of
yeah,
course.
11.6 points in pretty short order. Yeah, you might be regretting that decision already, so it's a tough one. Although
Well,
Rondé Gadsden, that's a pretty nice pickup that you got there.
I decided going into this week's waivers that I was just gonna spend whatever I had left. And I wanted Gadsden. I needed an upgraded tight end, and I was just gonna say I don't have a lot of money left. Let's go and spray the board and let's get some guys. Worked out. Um, yeah, Herbert would be nice, but I'll be honest. If they're up three scores in the second half, I don't know how much he's going to be sitting back there throwing the ball. So I'll take it. And you know
Yeah.
what? Also, you don't make a trade for Lamar Jackson and not plan to try to play him. So I mean, I intentionally did not make my final offer until I saw yesterday's practice report that he had practiced in a limited fashion. Had he not
Well
practiced yesterday, I would not have made that deal
Well,
in the way.
Lowell, here's what I'll say about this, Lowell. You may very well be wrong about Lamar Jackson, but you were wrong about C-Mac last year, and you still won the championship. So you know what? I won that trade, but you won the league. So I think you'd be happy if you had Justin Herbert leading to a championship, and you still have Jamar Chase in the mix. So we'll see. But I think your team is strong enough that you're in the mix, regardless of whether Lamar is a force for you.
I think I'm in the mix to play spoiler to Paul. I don't.
Is Paul going to make the playoffs? He's only 4-3. I don't
Well,
know. Maybe
see
we go into there. It's
yeah. I mean, that's where I think let's go there, right? So, um, let's talk about that because that to me, it, that's the key, the crux in this. Because for me, I keep winning. Don't think my team's overly special, but I keep winning. So at some point, might as well commit to that. Paul's 4-3. He's won three in a row, but you know it's not exactly. He took some early season losses. He's basically, I mean, his team is a juggernaut, but 4-3 isn't exactly head and shoulders above most of his division and most of the league. So, you know, you're 2 games up on him for in the standings. Yeah, I mean it's I don't know. We've seen it before. Just because you think you got the best team doesn't guarantee anything.
Yeah, it's like the Oscar. I think about it like the Oscars. Sometimes you win the Lifetime Achievement Award in the year you're not supposed to win it, like, Brad Pitt winning for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which was a great film, but is that the iconic Brad Pitt performance that we're all gonna No, I don't think that's I think there are many examples of that. For me, when I had clearly the best team in the league 3 or 4 years ago and was averaging 12, 15 more points a game, went on a tear, and then lost in the finals to La Magna. I was super bummed. It's any given Sunday, but that was, I think, LaMagna's first win of the title, and over the course of 10 years, he had been so great, and he deserved to win one. I think I had a better team than him last year, so I would look at this year the same way. I wanna be, um, that version of spoiler to Paul. I think on paper, Paul's team is better than mine, but if he has to play 3 rounds in the playoffs instead of 2, there's more chances for him to have a bad week, and once you get to that final, anything can happen, so yes, he has the best team on paper, but if he's, hovering around 500 or doesn't win that division, he's gonna have to still get a little bit lucky even with that roster in the playoffs.
Yeah, and Paul asked the question: Is this not the strongest team we've ever seen? I don't know about that. Frankly, he's made a lot of moves. I mean, this team is vastly different than what he drafted. But I don't know if it's the strongest team. It certainly looks very strong. But let's see what happens. We've seen a lot of trades go down in the last couple of weeks, and then guys start getting hurt and things happen. So,
Well, let's go. I mean, I don't know if we have the stats, Lowell, but what's Paul averaging per game? It's like low 120s. I think just I obviously am biased to know my own team that year I just referenced. I think I was high 120s per game that
so
year. I know
Paul's
there
at
have been others.
yeah, Paul's at 126, and so we
Oh, he
can
is
do
at
this.
120s. Okay,
He's at
126. Okay.
126. We can go back. Okay. I mean, last year I finished at 118, but that was a really strong team. And if you were to go and play, look at this. Well, let's go backwards. You know, 118, 120, those are really high numbers. I had a couple poor weeks in the middle that skewed that down, but I think if we go here, I'll go back to it. Jump back around. Paul's at 126 right now, but rough. Usually, you've got teams that are up in there. I mean, Kirshner was 126 over the course of the whole season, the whole regular season, 2 years ago. So it's not like
Mm.
126 is unheard of. Um, and
Humor
and
me and
in
go
that
back to the year
season,
I was good. Or yeah, so
yeah, I
sorry,
mean,
go ahead.
Kirshner was 13-1 at 126.
Wow.
Uh, we've had 128, right? LaMagna was 128 a couple years, in 2022. You were 126, right?
Okay, I thought all right, so around the same. All right, so mid to
Yeah, I
high
mean,
120s is pretty consistently where the top team is. Yeah.
yeah, high 120s. We go back. We got a 120 here with LaMagna. I mean, only 8-5. That's probably the most comparable for Paul. Now that's the COVID year, so that's not exactly the
Yeah.
best, perhaps the best, team to use as a comparison. And then you start going back further, and I don't know. I think we saw. Look, we had a 132 with an 8-5 team, a 122 with an 8-5 team back in 2018. So, I say all that to make the point that just because Paul's scoring 120, averaging 126, that's not a guarantee of anything. Um, you know, Paul's faced a tough schedule just in terms of the points that have gone against him, but it's not the most points against for anybody in the league, and he's 4-3. So if you want to say you're the best team, then you better win you got to win the games.
Yeah, and you
Have
gotta
that
have
record,
yeah,
right?
high you need that high floor, right? And Paul clearly doesn't have a high enough floor to be winning enough games. So yes, averages are nice, but if you're really volatile, you can be exposed in a weaker week.
Yeah, I mean, look at I mean, Bodson made it. I don't agree with what Bodson did. I don't think he needed to sell, but he did that. He sold a bunch of players like Amon Ra, who's on buy, right? So you might have a week where you have a buy Mageddon and you take a bunch of loss. You take a loss. That's okay. Um, that can be a strategy, and we'll see. I think Paul can talk a big game. He's the preseason favorite. He's the post draft favorite. He was my pick to win it. I'm not really surprised that he's made more moves to go all in. Um, I think Paul's out here in the chat talking about there's no way he doesn't win the division. I don't know. You're 4-3, and the two teams tied with you in the division are both 2-1 in the division. So, I think talk a big game, but we got a long way to go. We're 7 weeks in, got another 7 to play. We'll see what happens. I definitely would say Paul's probably just about even money if you were going to make a bet, but I don't want the FBI coming in, breaking into my house, so I'm not going to make any wagers
Well,
today.
Chauncey Billups didn't personally bet on any games. He just had tipped a couple people, so don't worry about it. There's
Oh, I mean,
nothing, nothing,
I'd
nothing,
like
nothing
some
to see here.
X-ray vision. Don't you want X-ray vision next time you're playing cards in Vegas?
Oh my God, that was crazy. I couldn't believe that. So I gotta read that story. It's the most it's like salacious thing I've ever seen in this world. Like he thought the Tim Donaghy thing was something. This is insane. This is some crazy stuff. Yeah, I don't think I'm informed enough to have a fun conversation about it, other than just the headline is so crazy.
Oh, I don't know that I'm,
Mhm.
educated enough on the indictment to break it down for you. Other than there's some pretty sophisticated card scheme here.
Yeah.
I'll give it that.
But did
Um,
you see the part about the one thing I did see about the basketball side, Chauncey just telling someone, "Oh yeah, we're gonna tank. We're tanking now." So, and then this team, the Blazers, I think whoever it was lost by 28 points that night. So, oh yeah, like we're not playing our guys tonight. It's like that's pretty
I
good
think the
stuff.
more interesting part of all of this is, Wendy was on Rich Eisen today, and he basically said, well, when the Terry Rozier thing happened 2 years ago, the NBA basically like pulled him for the rest of the year, right? As like while they investigated, they obviously didn't find any wrongdoing. He played last season. He played the next 2 years. That obviously doesn't look like a very thorough investigation at this point. But yeah, the Chauncey stuff, and you got the Damon Jones thing, who's like relaying inside info on LeBron to people to bet, unders on props, things like that. So, it's pretty wild, these two schemes going on at the same time, and you got one of the five families involved. I mean, it's a
And let's not overlook the fact that my hated Dodgers have the worst offender in all of sports still playing in the World Series and blaming his interpreter for his
well,
transgressions. So
he fled to a foreign jurisdiction today. Okay.
did he really?
Well, they flew to Toronto. I mean, that is a
Oh,
foreign
sorry. I thought you were talking about
country.
the interpreter. I think he's in jail.
Oh no,
Okay, got it. No,
the
yeah,
interpreter is
yeah.
locked up.
Yeah, the interpreter made those multi-million-dollar bets. Yeah, it was the interpreter. That's right. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
now
that's what I'm gonna say when the IRS comes knock on my door. It's my interpreter who stole all of my money. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
all right. We could talk about this forever.
Yeah,
But what
we
should
get
we should
back
we break
to.
down trades? How do you want to run?
Yeah, I
There's a
mean,
lot
look,
of trades. Yeah.
we've touched on Paul a little bit. It's just I don't know. The Bodson trade kind of shocked me in the sense of like, really, Eric, you're 4-3, you're in it. But I don't know. I mean, how do you feel? You've obviously got a very talented team. So, what's your reaction when you see trades like what's gone down the last couple of weeks? You haven't been as involved in these moves. You've got a good team. They're starting to get healthy and come off suspension. So you didn't need to
Yeah.
necessarily make a lot of moves, but what's your perception of what's going on?
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of people are going all in. Obviously, Paul, we knew would be doing that from the get-go. I, like Paul, had some extra draft capital. And then you and Jacobs, I think those are the big ones who've made some moves. I'm definitely getting a bit antsy. I made one trade with Zach, which was it's played out okay for me. It seems like Drake London's gonna reemerge after a slow start, so I'm glad I bought. I still gave up some draft capital, but bought, I think, relatively low on him. And the other piece of that deal, Kenneth Walker, has not been great. Probably wasn't the best piece, but it gave me a little depth. But yeah, I've still got my first round pick that's burning a hole in my pocket. So I think I will probably at some point need to add a running back. That's not a secret to anybody who's seen any of my trade offers I've made, but I'm in no rush. I've got till the trade deadline. I'm not worried about making the playoffs like Paul needs to be. So I have plenty of time to figure out my all-in strategy sitting at 6-1. Uh, and yeah, any given Sunday. So the other thing is Rasheed Rice, joking aside, I was chatting the group. I do think he could be a top 5 wide receiver the rest of the way. So I really wanted to see him come back, CD come back. Brock Bowers is now out. Everyone can complain about their injuries. I've had some injuries and or suspensions, and now I'm getting my roster back at full swing. I feel pretty good about it.
Yeah, it's a good team. It's one of those that you had to get through the Rasheed Rice suspension. You've done that, and the CeeDee Lamb injury at the same time. You've done a good job to survive, and Gibbs is really, you know,
I mean, Gibbs exploded Monday night. Yeah,
yeah,
I had my best week of the. I was like, okay, I wasn't even gonna pay attention Monday night because I'd already won my matchup. But then it was like, checked halftime, he had 25 points, not too shabby. And
yeah,
then on Rasheed Rice, I think he had 10 targets in half a game. Like and they checked out because Mahomes was taken out of the game, but 10 targets and 2 touchdowns in one half of football. Not too shabby for a first game back after an ACL. I think it was an ACL injury for out for a year and a suspension. So pretty good for Rasheed Rice.
yeah. I think they really made it a point to try to feed him, and that paid off. That's for sure. That really gives your team, I think, a big boost, right? You have three very good receivers. Certainly nobody who's a weakness when they're all playing. You're going to have to manage. A couple weeks from now, both Lamb and Rice are on bye. That might be a tough week for you. But look, worst case, you can go to the bar and eat dinner with solo Joe Flacco, and talk about what a great backup quarterback situation you have. But no, it's a good team. I regret dropping Ertz. I don't think that was a smart move by me, and shrewd pickup by you. He's a little bit feast or famine, but when he finds the end zone, he's a good double digit point player. And Bowers should be coming back after the bye, I would think. And yeah, it's definitely
Yeah.
a team that don't look at the rankings for some of these receivers, but based on the names, yeah, it's definitely
Oh, yeah, I
it's a
mean, the Fantasy Pros has all 3 of those guys top 5 for this
mhm.
week, and so I feel really good. I need one more running back and one more tier. Paul's got the 1-2 punch of Bijan and C-Mac. We'll see if C-Mac stays healthy, of course, but that's a really powerful 1-2 punch, and I just need my second running back who's tier 1, and then I really think I stack up against anybody in the league once I have that guy.
I think a lot of teams need a running back. It's such a, I think, especially thin position this season. I was having a conversation with an owner recently, and they were like, "Oh, you look like you're about a running back away." And I went, "Yeah, but I don't see anybody who's in a sell mode who's got running backs, realistically that are available. The people with good running backs tend to be the good teams. Paul's got really good running
Right.
backs. You've got Gibbs. It's not like Derrick Henry's been a disappointment. Does somebody really want to trade for like a Brees Hall type? I mean, that's not
Yeah.
inspiring. So it's really hard
Yeah,
to upgrade running
it's
back
hard.
this
No,
year.
it's really hard. I've put out feelers to the folks who I would
Yeah.
want, and between Alvin Kamara, J.K. Dobbins, and Kenneth Walker. J.K. Dobbins has been surprisingly impressive. He thought it was gonna be a timeshare. I originally drafted him with R.J. Harvey, but Dobbins has clearly emerged. So he's chugging along. Kind of reminds me of like a James Conner. He's unsexy. Everyone's like, he's not really that good, but keeps throwing up 14, 15 point weeks. So I don't mind him for now, but yeah, definitely could use a little bit of an upgrade.
Oh yeah, I think that's the hardest thing for my team too. It's where do you find that player, right? It's like you don't really, you're not going to trade away a running back. Paul's not going to trade away a running back. There's just not, and the teams that are really at the bottom there just don't have like in running backs that really inspire the kind of confidence that, oh, I really need to go get a Chuba Hubbard, right? Or like that just like that's not moving the needle for me, right? It's just not enough of a consistent producer, right? So that's I think really where the struggle is going to be is does somebody who is in these there's 7 teams that are above 500, right? Does somebody in there, one or two of those teams decide, look, they want to tap out of this? I don't know, but it's going to be interesting to see if somebody can really upgrade that situation because that's the one part that I think most teams, other than Paul, would benefit from.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. There's a lot of people in the messy middle, and I think that, yeah, a couple more sellers. I don't know if they'll be selling running backs, but there'll probably be a couple more sellers that emerge.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I want to ask you. You live in New York. You got a lot of public speaking going on. I got it. We've had a good question here, you know, from the chat. Is Paul the Stephen A. Smith of the league?
Hmm.
Feel
I
free,
think
take your
Paul
time.
is I think Paul is the Dick Vitale of the league. Paul doesn't speak. Stephen A. Smith goes on 10-minute monologues. I think Paul just is, gets he's emotional, he's fired up, he's in good spirits. I think Dick Vitale is a stronger comp for me, off the cuff here. What do you
Yeah,
think?
I don't know. I think it's just hilarious. I think it's a great comment, right? I just I don't know what whether it's true or not, right? Or if it's the best description of Paul. I don't know, but it is interesting. It's well here. Let me get you this take, right? So, one of the things I had after making the trade the other day, I wanted to know, what was I competing against in terms of those offers. Apparently there was a late Paul offer for Jamar Chase that was a non-starter. For Justin, it was involving a pick swap, which Justin wasn't going to want to do. I don't blame him. I had the same conversation with Paul. If I'm trading away elite talent, I don't want to be giving up picks at the same time. Um, you know, and then he had a not as good of a pick offer from a different owner for Chase. So it was interesting to always try to find out after the fact. What do you think? Do you think you got
Hmm.
fleeced? You won the deal? You lost the deal? Uh, but it is. I always enjoy when I hear that other people get the same exact type of Paul offers that I receive. So
Well, I'm excited for Paul to be a seller after he's 4 and 5 and start thinking about next year. So I'm looking forward to that when maybe I can pick off C-Mac or Bijan from him.
I mean, look, if Wagner beats Paul this week, I mean, shut it down. That would be. I mean, look, Paul's got two guys playing tonight. He's got 5 points between Dicker the kicker and the Chargers defense.
I
That's
loved
not
how you
great.
just said Dicker the kicker. That was pretty good.
It's
Yeah.
Dicker. That's his name, Cameron Dicker the kicker.
Huh.
So like I said,
Yeah.
I'm rooting for Wagner. Its team's not very good, but you know, um, he probably should listen to this and then put Terry McLaurin in his starting lineup over someone like Khalil Shakir, maybe, or Troy Franklin. Yeah, I mean, it's not great, but you know, I do like the Falcons' defense against the Dolphins. Paul said he will shut down if Wagner beats him this week. So
Shut
here we
down?
go.
What does that
I,
mean?
I don't know what
Maybe he
shut
is
down
Stephen.
means.
Maybe he is Stephen A. Smith. I misspoke. He is. That is something Stephen A. would say.
Yeah. So I don't know. This is Florida State poop man, right? Dog poop guy. This is a public declaration of what he's going to do if he loses. So we're all Team Wagner this week. Um, other than Paul's team, I mean, anybody else stand out to you? Obviously, you've got a really good team and you've got a good record, but you survey the league. We've got the teams that have been clear sellers. We don't need to worry about them too much in terms of competing for the championship. But you
Yeah,
look
no, I mean
around,
my
who do you feel is the
my
biggest
opponent
upset?
this look, I think it's I'm just gonna pull up the standings again here, but yeah,
Well,
I
you got
mean
a
my
big
opponent
matchup this week.
yeah, my opponent this week who kindly named his team for the at least the week. I don't know how long he'll keep it that way. Rashid's rap sheet, which no offense taken, we know what Rashid did and drivers everywhere should be scared, or pedestrians, but no, he's got a great team. And Cam Scatabo, I have to say, I mean, what a what a pick. I mean, he was like a throw. I don't know what round. Let me see. What round was he picked? I just has it. I don't know if it shows up on my iPad here, but yeah, what a great pick at
I'll
running
find
back.
out.
It's a yeah. To get guys like that, that's how you win the league, right? It's like you get in, uncover a talent in a mid to late round, and
Well,
then I think what
I was gonna say, I mean, Jonathan Taylor, late career resurgence, right?
Well, what I was right, where I was going with that is right. I bet Jacobs didn't come into the year necessarily thinking I don't know what he was thinking, but he may not have thought he had the most draft capital or this was like his year. But when you have that kind of momentum from that kind of value play, then you like, oh, I have a good team, and then you make a move for a Taylor who candidly I wanted as well, and lost out on that little beauty contest. But no, I like Jacob's team. I'm looking at it now. He's got some guys with buys this week, which helps me. But he's a little light at receiver, I would say. So I feel
Yeah.
he's strong at running back, but receiver, uh, he traded for my former guy, Ted McMillan. Not the receivers are a little weak, and anytime you rely on a Garrett Wilson on the Jets, it's pretty tough going. So
Yeah, I agree with you. I just don't think T Mac has delivered in the way that people thought he would in the preseason, being the target hog there. Look, you're depending on Bryce Young. That's not exactly an inspiring quarterback situation, but yeah, I mean Jacobs, it's a good team. If Brian Thomas can ever really get going, that team looks a lot stronger. But BTJ has been a relative weak point or disappointment. He's got Travis Hunter, so you got to try to play Jaguar receiver roulette. That doesn't sound fun. But it's got Jake Ferguson. It's got Josh Allen, Jonathan Taylor,
But,
Scatterbo, as
I'm
you
looking
mentioned.
at Josh Allen's game log right now. He's played 6 games.
Yep.
2 of the 6 games were 11.8 and 13.4. I mean, so 1 out of 3 games he's thrown in a dud. And one of the games was 19, He's only had one
Yeah.
really good game, and he's been
Well,
it's surprising given how good the Bills are that he hasn't
I
been
mean, both
stronger.
of those. Yeah, but the thing that I look at that and I go, okay, both of those are road games. Atlanta was coming off by. But look at what he did against Baltimore. I mean, the rest of the games he's been really good, and frankly, he's probably going to have a lot of opportunity to score a lot of points, um, just going forward. But it is a concern, right? That Buffalo offense doesn't look quite as explosive and dynamic as it has in the past, and That's definitely be a
Yeah.
concern if the ceiling's not quite there, right? But that's part of the game. You've got to, part of it is luck, part of it is strategy or trying to adapt. So, we'll see.
Yeah.
Overall, it's a solid team for
No,
sure.
overall, I like him. Obviously, he's
Yeah.
running away with that division. Zach's won a couple games, but he's tanking, and Kirshner's tanking. Wagner was tanking before the season even started. So I mean, he's going to coast. What I'm concerned about this week, the matchup this week, I really want to win it because I really want that 1 seed. So that's I just want to be solidified.
Well,
Obviously, there's
he
a threshold of being top 2 to get the bye, but if Paul is, joking aside about Paul, there's a good chance he's the 3 seed. So I would love, and I shouldn't be scared. I shouldn't say I'm scared of Paul, but I would love to have Paul have to get through another 2 games before he faces me. And it's in a hypothetical final. A lot of assumptions being made, but if I could get the 1, Jacobs at the 2, Paul at the 3, then I wouldn't face Paul until the finals, and he has to go through Jacobs in the second round.
I mean, look, having a two-game lead on the top seed with 6 to play is a pretty good advantage if you can get there. And Jacobs is in definitely the weakest division, so you have to assume he's going to win all the 3 of those games they
Right,
need
which is
there.
why I need
So
that tiebreaker over him to win this week. Yeah, exactly. So,
yeah, I mean, I hear that. I think that's important to sort of think of that strategically, and we'll see. I mean, when I look at it, I mean, Bodson's team is so decimated now. Um, it's so drastically different. I don't know what to really make of it, but, especially with a bye this week for Sun God. But you've got probably 4 teams that are all, I think, good enough to chase it down. So, um, Paul wants to keep reminding us the tiebreaker is points for, which is all well and good if you have the same record. But the problem is,
I forgot about that. I
no,
know
but the
that was the whole
problem for
thing.
Paul is he's already 2 games behind you, and if you beat Jacobs, Jacobs scores a lot of points, and he's got certainly that ability to get up there near Paul when it comes to points for. And at the same time, Paul's in a tougher, more competitive division than Jacob. So the odds are Paul's going to lose at least one more game just because of the schedule in comparison to
Mm.
someone else. So, you know, got to take those
Interesting.
factors into it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I'm so Jacob's at 799. I'm at 788. So we're pretty close on points. So yeah, interesting. Thank you, Paul, for the valuable real time
Don't
feedback.
think Paul. Don't do that. Don't do that.
Got
Don't
to
think
butter him
Paul.
up before we wipe him out of this playoffs. But
Well, no,
I
remember,
don't want to sell it. Yeah. What do you say?
no, I was gonna say, don't forget when he loses this week, he's gonna shut himself down.
Yeah, exactly. You heard it here on the pod first.
You
And yeah,
know,
look, Lowell, we talked about your team. You're in the mix, obviously, and LaMagna and Joe Richmond are interesting teams too. They're sitting at 4-3, and those are I think it's not controversial to say that those have been historically the 2 best owners in this league. So they're sitting at 4-3. You never know if they get into the playoffs or make a couple moves. Would never count either of those guys out. On paper, I don't think their teams are as good as some of the others we're talking about, but get into the playoffs, anything can happen. Then, so I think those are the other 2 to keep your eye on.
yeah, I'm curious with Joe what he really wants to do um, with that team. He hasn't put up a lot of points this year. Generally doesn't make a lot of trades, but I mean, there's certainly a lot of talent. Drake May's been very good.
Oh, Lad McConkey's got 16 points already tonight. Not too bad.
Well, yeah, he's got a touchdown. I mean, like I said, that they're up a good little bit there. Um, yeah, I wouldn't be. Let's see what happens, right? I think that's going to be,
Yeah.
that second half, like you're talking about with Herbert. For me, I mean, they don't really need to do a lot, if you really think about it. Um, but we've been
Yeah.
talking a lot about teams, where people are, and we can go look in at some projections here, right? You know, I think this always sort of defaults to projecting teams to be closer than they really are in a lot of ways. Um, but what this does, you're projected to have the number 1 seed. You know, you can look at the championship percentage and see that Paul basically is double you and frankly 3 times or more than everybody else in terms of what Fantasy Pros thinks. But it gives you a sense of, it thinks Paul's going to lose 2 more times, right? Like,
Yeah.
you gotta Got to take a lot of things into consideration.
It
Um,
does. Is that this? That's different. That's projected record. That's different than power rankings, though. I like this
yeah,
stuff.
so you could look at power rankings, right? So power rankings is it's all relative to whoever it ranks at the top with a score of 100. I mean, I've moved myself up the power rankings by making some trades. Um, I don't know that we've ever seen a spread in power rankings where you've had teams ranked or rated so low in comparison. There is a pretty good gap between Paul and the next team in terms of power rankings,
Yeah.
but that's, I mean, right?
Well,
That's just part of it.
yeah. I'm just looking at it one more time. I think as I look at it, actually, there's three pretty clear cohorts. There's
Hmm.
cohort one going for it. I'm just going top to down, and from third edition division, that's obviously Jacobs is one. In the tombs, you have yourself, Lowell, and Paul clearly going for it. That's three folks.
I
And
think
then
LeMagna's
and
going for it.
well, I want to come back to Lamagna.
Okay.
And then I would put myself as the fourth. And then I would put in this middle tier, Lamagna and Joe, who could go for I don't know, I think they could go for it. And then I think that gets you to six. And then I think the other six are clearly not going for it. I would break it down that way right now.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you can certainly make judgment calls over some of these teams, and I think injuries play a part to it, right? You make trades, guys get hurt. You try to pick up players
Yeah.
that things happen. Um,
Yeah, but maybe another way to say is buyers, sellers, or hold. Like I feel there's four clear buyers, six clear sellers, and Joe and LaMagna have good enough teams to be buyers if they want, or sell. Like they could kind of go either way. They're kind of in that middle spot, in my view.
yeah, I think the problem with the sellers is that there's not a lot left to sell, right? I mean, there are teams who have pieces that can be sold, but if you were to go through it, right, and just take like a very cold, hard look, let's just take a look at Wagner's team. I mean, sure, Tucker Craft, Dallas Goddard, they are viable. Um, Devontae Adams, certainly, I mean, there's value there, but, there's really not, well, as we talked about, most
Well,
teams maybe have,
Harrison Butker, if you're into that sort of thing.
sure, you know, I don't know how many kicker trades we're going to get. You look at
But
Kirshner's
kickers with
team.
political views tend to trade above their weight and trade value.
That's
So
true. That's true. I think for Kirchner, for Justin, the issue is, yeah, I know he wants to hold on to Quinshon Junkins, right? So that would be a very attractive piece for somebody to come and try to trade for. But if he doesn't want to sell him, he wants to keep him for next year. Good luck, right? That's
mm.
unlikely to be able to make that deal. You're gonna have to really pay significantly. Zach may look back and say, "Man, why did I make that trade with Paul?" The way Dak Prescott's playing, but outside of Dak, there's not exactly a ton of great value here. There's not bad players, but it's hard to bank on
I mean, Zach
Jalen
sold
Warren,
already all his assets. Yeah, like
right?
Wagner sold his assets or bought assets last year, so he gave up his picks this year, so he didn't have anything in the cupboard coming into the year. And Zach is loaded up because he sold all his guys, so he's going to be big, really
Yeah,
good next year.
exactly. You look at
Yeah.
Drew. I think is interesting. He's got Rico Dowdle, but with the keeper value there, why would you really want to trade that? Sure, Brees Hall, like okay, but again, that inspired a lot of confidence. I don't know. Derrick Henry has been a big disappointment. So there's not a lot of real
Well, there's
options here.
Tyler Warren on that roster.
There is Tyler
The
Warren, right? But that's it. I mean, you got a Colts fan with the Colts' best player in a keeper league.
What about Danny Dimes? Not counting
Um,
him. What about
you know,
quarterbacks who get arrested in the greater Indianapolis area? Do they count for the league?
you know, I'm all for Mark Sanchez getting another shot in the league. He's got a lot of cred in the locker room.
Did
Um,
someone send the meme around to our group chat, or did I see it somewhere else where he doesn't he was released for time already served, and then a picture of the Jets, him wearing a Jets uniform.
yeah,
So,
I don't know if you sent that around, but I have seen that
so
making
good.
its rounds. Yeah, there's that's a wild story. We don't need to get into that, but it's a wild
We got
story.
Mark Sanchez, Chauncey Billups. It's been a wild few weeks in sports. Some very sad and untimely deaths and yeah, just and yeah, Doug
Yeah,
Martin. That's just a sad time. They're crazy
Yeah,
town.
it's right. It's
Yeah.
been a wild month for off the field things in sports, right? If we just
Yes.
you know recap October, all that aside, yeah. So like that's the thing. I think we're at a position now in the league where people have sold most of what's really, I think, desirable very early. Now that said, right, like 2 weeks from now, I could lose 2 games in a row, and I could be like, I'm out of it, and I could be trying to offload Chase, right? Like things like that can happen, but it's hard right now. I think if you want to go and acquire a lot, because I just don't see a lot of really attainable, uh, quality players. But you never know, right? People get creative. Um, I just don't see a lot of potential moves out there.
Yeah. Well, we'll find out. If
We'll find
anybody's
out.
interested in trading me a RB1 for a first round pick, you have my number.
Very possible. Very possible. So, well, we'll finish up on a lighter note. Halloween's around the corner. What is your daughter making you go as?
So she wanted me to go as Hans from Frozen, who, if you've seen the movie, spoiler alert, he ends up being the bad guy, the prince. Weirdly, as you might expect on Amazon.com or Disney stores, they don't really sell Hans costumes for the seventh lead in Frozen. So I'm going to
Mhm.
be going as Sven, the another tertiary character in Frozen who is the romantic interest of Princess Anna. So our whole family will be wearing Frozen attire to a slew of Halloween parties beginning tomorrow and culminating, of course, in Friday, October 31st, where I will be expected to take half a day off from work and do trick or treating across Greenwich Village with the fam. So that'll be exciting times.
Oh, I look
Mm,
forward to the
mm.
pictures.
Yes.
You know.
Yes. What about yourself?
Uh,
What are the Carr family costumes what are we in store for here?
yeah. So we originally, Adam told us that he wanted to be Woody. So then we would have made the younger one Buzz Lightyear, and then we said, okay, so what should mom and dad be? And he told he told Kim, he goes, I want you to be the piggy bank. And I went, so you want your mother to dress up like a pig? Good luck surviving that. So that idea didn't get a lot of traction, and we tried to sell him on, well, we could be
So
like
many
Mr.
levels, that's so
It's
bad.
so
The
bad. It's
piggy,
so
and
bad.
then like the element of like you give me my
Yeah,
so
yeah, it's so bad. It's so bad. So we tried to pitch him on like Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head. He didn't really want. He was like, "No, Daddy, you need to be the dinosaur." So anyway, but his desires have changed, and so he wanted to do Paw Patrol. We went to the Halloween store. He decided he wanted to be Marshall, which is the firefighting dog. So he's going to dress in that. His younger brother will be the police dog, and then mom and dad are just going to wear shirts that basically say Paw Patrol because they don't make adult size Paw Patrol costume, and I'm not looking to try to find one or make one. So, you know, but he did.
uh,
I mean, he's
that
one
should
of
be the
those things where he's
punishment for
like,
the league next year that you have to wear a child size Paw Patrol costume for Halloween.
I don't know
So,
if anybody's going to fit in one. Um, you know,
all right, well those would be some good picks. Okay. Paw
yeah,
Patrol
one of
out on the loose in
the
South Beach. Okay.
daycare. You'll like this. One of the daycare classmates, a little girl who's my son is good friends with. She told her dad he had to be the pink girl Paw Patrol. So he's like, I don't even know where to begin with that. Like, just
Is Paw Patrol a boys show? I obviously, being in the
it's not
entertainment business, I'm
necessarily a.
familiar with the intellectual property. I've never actually watched it myself, but it's
I mean, it's probably more of a boys show. Most of the characters are male in terms of the dogs. That girl has an older brother, so he watches it. So you know how that goes. One kid, what the
yeah,
older one dictates at that age what's going on in the house. So, um, I don't know if I'd really call it like a boy show, but it's definitely more of a boy show. It's probably not as much of a boy show as like Spidey, you know. I mean, it's not. I don't even know what the girl shows would be. Like we it's just not in our world. Just not part of our life.
yeah,
So, it's pretty wild how like different the little boys and girls are at 3 or 4 years old. So, but that's exciting, man. I mean,
yeah.
uh, you
No,
know,
it's gonna be fun. Halloween's fun with kids in a different way than what was fun when we were in college. It's a different vibe, I would say, but still fun.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, well, since we sort of circled back to parent
Paul,
corner,
Paul, I have to just acknowledge his comment. It's pretty funny.
yeah. So, you know, um, I'd look. You got parents. We're going to talk about our kids. We're going to talk about life.
What's Bill Simmons parent corner? Yeah,
Yeah,
was parent
parent
corner.
corner.
Yeah, yeah. We did our little Halloween corner to end this one,
Halloween
but
corner,
yeah,
right? Look, we
yeah,
could talk about, one of my parenting tricks to go to Costco and get a double chocolate chunk cookie. Yeah, sure. No, I mean we don't need the cookie, but you know everyone gets the gist of that one. So
yeah. Well, we
yeah,
got our Wegmans now at Astor Place. It's a game changer. So
oh,
everything's
that's
coming to New
great.
York now. So yeah, exciting times. All right. Well,
All right,
this was a blast.
yeah,
Best of luck in the league. I obviously want myself to win the most, but other than that, anybody but Paul would be a good second choice. So
there we go.
let's
Right,
hope for
anybody
that.
but Paul. That's the slogan for the league for the rest of the year. I like it. So.
All right. Take care. Bye.